treated the business like a ministry. Honestly, like, I don't think I was being a good steward of the business and even the resources being people that God was sending me at that time, right? I feel like now when I'm working, which is much more in just like a business owner capacity rather than a traditional like minister, I'm counseling these girls, like it's completely switched. I honestly feel more of God's pleasure in my daily work now than I think I did then.
Welcome to Answer the Call, a podcast where we help Christians discern what they feel called to do and practically land a job or start a business that's aligned with it. Today I have my very special, and I do mean very special friend, Meredith Limoges, who is a multi-time founder. She is inherently, by that statement, an entrepreneur and self-titled, I guess, freedom director in your business that you have specialty crafted leather hand goods and handbags and accessories that serve to set the captives free. I'll let you explain what that means. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, I'm so excited for all the people who I know are out there, many of whom maybe I've talked to at one point, who have told me they'd like to have some kind of business that is partnered with a charity that can relieve suffering, particularly within the space of sex trafficking. And so when I met you, I was like, oh, no way. People are going to flip to hear it from this lady herself. So thank you very much for being here, Meredith.
Yeah, well, so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Yes, I do self-appointed freedom director for
That's a
some
great title.
reason. Yeah, it's just the title of like CEO or just owner founder. I didn't feel like it fit, right? So kind of came up with freedom director because it's what I feel like it is my call overall in my life to do, right? Whether I'm doing that through the vehicle of Beaudin or Door of Hope, which is a new nonprofit that we just founded, or a different company. Yeah, it seems to fit the bill the best for sure.
Well, I'd agree. And I'm so grateful you also teased. I forgot to do this in your intro, but I was definitely going to get there. Not only do you have Beaudin, but you have, which I think you've been running maybe for 12 or 13 years now.
Correct.
Uh, and also, you have recently started a new nonprofit, which is just incredible. And since you just mentioned this is your calling to set the captives free, I just have to ask, like, how did you come to feel called to that? What's your calling story?
Yeah, good question. It definitely starts with Bowdoin. I wouldn't say I would have called myself an entrepreneur. I just knew that I didn't want to trade time for dollars my
Mm.
whole life. I just wanted freedom. And yeah, so I was really pressing in with God. I was just a new little baby Christian, and I want to give my life to you, Lord. What is your will for my life? Just kind of that common question. What is your will for my life? And really felt strong. Just, I remember I was getting ready one day and I was like, oh my gosh, I should start this handbag business. And, there's backstory to that. Made handbags, for fun. And my mom was an interior designer, right? So it fit. It wasn't like completely out of left field. But I had really like no business even starting a business. I had
Me
no,
either.
right?
I've heard it said that entrepreneurship isn't necessarily it's not because we're the most skilled, it's just because we have the audacity to say, oh, sure, yeah, let's open up that LLC.
Exact, for sure. I say I was like naive enough to believe I could do it, and then that was all enough to actually take action. And that's pretty much how it came about. And I was working full-time sales job and was really good at what I did, and decided, so in the summer of 2012, I decided that in the spring of 2013, I would quit and start this business. And then like less than a month later, I got laid off, which wasn't utter shock to my system. I was like appalled, didn't know what to do with that because I was the one that like had always been recruited for the next job and the next place. So after I got through like the initial shock and like the knee jerk reaction of like calling my whole network and trying to line up another job, I was like, okay, wait, I actually had planned to leave like in next year anyway. Like maybe this is my opportunity. So I like to say like God literally like kicked me out of the nest because who
Wow.
knows if I would have actually left
Yeah.
on my own accord, right? Because a job can brings a certain amount of comfort. But yeah, that was the beginning of it. And with that, I knew immediately that when starting the company, I wanted to give away a certain amount of our proceeds, like to support a cause. So I started just praying, like, what the Lord wanted that cause to be. And it was probably a good month where I really wasn't sure. And a friend of mine then gave me a pamphlet for an anti trafficking organization working in India. And honestly, it was the first time I became aware of sex trafficking. And I just knew immediately, like, this is what I'm supposed to support. I had a business partner at the time, and they really wanted to keep it like local, domestic, helping an organization here. So, yeah, we started interviewing local organizations to figure out who we wanted to partner with. And that definitely started the journey. So, it really just came initially as a way to support what others were doing.
How did you, well, first off, I have to say that I relate to, I felt like I, quote, received my calling, or this idea that just like hit me like a Mack truck of like, whoa, oh my gosh, that's it, isn't it? And I'm not sure, maybe you resonate with a little bit of that feeling. It's like this idea that was just a bright light, um, that you're like, oh, I have to investigate. What's this? Or like, of course, that makes sense. How did you know to trust it versus the many other ideas that float in and out of our heads?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it can be summed up to, in a way, it's like all of a sudden you know something that you have no reason to know other than the fact that the Lord revealed it to you,
Yeah.
you know? And there's a psalm that talks about David wants to count the thoughts of God, and that if he could, they would be more than the grains of sand, which means that God has thoughts, right? David is preview to them, so much so to the detail that he could count them. So that's how I look at it. Like, okay, when I'm asking the Lord for an answer to something, and all of a sudden I have a thought that didn't come from my mind, right? And
Yeah.
just completely resonates and fits. Yeah, and there's like a confidence almost that comes with it.
I would agree. I didn't have much room to think that the thought was my own, because the thought I'm talking about was go deploy my soldiers to the stations in society that they were meant to serve. And at first I was like, wow, that's so powerful. And then I was like, well, that's like oddly militaristic and like definitely not an everyday thought for me. I plus I was going to the bathroom when it happened and I was just like, all right. and, and I was just like, yeah, that must be God. I think that's God. And then so many other things happened that, similar to you, it wasn't completely out of left field. It was within a large context of other things that God was weaving together, including just my own many, many hours of research into various career options, one of them being career coaching. And this was like him meeting me on the way as I was already like venturing out, and he was making sense of my path as I was going. I was like really inspired by Abraham, in Genesis 12 when God said, go to the land that I will show you. And so he already had to leave his family. He already had to, totally uproot his life, but he didn't know where the land would be, just that God would show him while he was on the way. And my journey kind of felt like that until, of course, fateful toilet moment. Sorry to be crass.
No, I don't know what it is about God in the bathroom.
No, for real. The other, like some other moments where only one time was a very cute moment where I was looking up at the night sky. All the rest of the time, I'm like doing my makeup, really just doing my makeup. And then God speaks to me. So, anyway, back to you though. Your story is just incredible. How did you go from okay, I'm going to make these bags, I'm going to partner with a charity. You already laid out some of the steps that you took to find a charity, as well as God kind of miraculously meeting you with this awareness that sex trafficking was even an issue. But in terms of the actual business, like, how did you go from it's just me and I like handbags to I am selling these and producing them?
Yeah, I took probably the longest and worst route ever. In other words, I knew what I meant not to do. So the first step is that at that time, I decided I wasn't going to go back to a job. I'm going to do this business for you, Lord. Simultaneously, I just had just a deep healing from the Lord and just like a really radical encounter and experienced a lot of freedom from past things in my own life. And I just like got on fire for God in a way where I was like, I just want to serve you. That's all I ever want to do. Just show me how to do it. Thinking like, forget the business. I'm going in ministry, you know?
Yes, classic.
And
Love it.
there's I mean it happens more frequently now, but back then I can't say like I really heard clearly from the Lord, but then I knew he said the business is your ministry.
Mm,
And I know what that meant. I don't think I still do. I think I'm still learning fully what that means. But I did know that, okay, I'm to do this business. Shortly after that, I received a vision of these women coming out of trafficking that had been rescued, making handbags, sitting at sewing machines. So at that time, it's like, okay, as we're building out the business plan, I was like making some designs myself and figuring out, okay, are we going to do in-house manufacturing? Do we want to outsource? And then immediately it was, okay, we're going to do in-house because we're going to employ these ladies. So I just ran after that vision like as hard as I could. Like I said, I did everything wrong. I'm not saying I did it right. There are probably other people that could speak to building what's coined a freedom business, right? And to be much more effective. But yeah, I just tried to be faithful with what he showed me and was open to, as I was connecting and doing more work myself, starting to lead weekly outreaches to areas in Atlanta where trafficking was happening, assisting in rescues, right? Just getting involved in ministries and everything. Then that network began to open up doors to, okay, if you find someone who's come through, they've been rescued and like at the end of the recovery program, and they need a job. It's really more work transition is what we've helped with, because reality is like in America, sewing is not a transferable skill,
yeah.
right? So it's really just to kind of help get them back out into the workforce, and then ready for something else. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the steps. And in regards to the business side of things, I mean, we just started like the easiest routes possible because we're totally bootstrapped, like
Mhm.
Etsy, local craft shows, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, just using material, everything we could get our hands on. Started out with one of a kind, then started experimenting with leather, realized that leather is the route we wanted to go. So still even like figuring at the same time figuring out like what our product line, what our niche is. And yeah, all together, all at the same time. So it's definitely been a long journey.
Yes, I relate to that. When you have a business idea and you're a hopeful, optimistic person, that you could see what it would look like, maybe in part at least, once it's rolling, but you're like, I have a entire ball of questions that I've been thinking. Oh my gosh. Oh, no worries, no worries. It happens. You're a busy lady. And the only thing that you could do is eat the elephant one bite at a time. I really want to ask you, like, was there any insider knowledge that you had to have before starting this business, or was it one Googling or informational interview advice session at a time?
Yeah, no, there was no knowledge I had, which again was just going back to me
Me
being
either.
completely naive and zealous, right? Like, I can do anything. God's given me a vision, right? Like, it'll all work out. I have since realized, yeah, it's not the best route to go. So, anyone listening, I wouldn't advise taking that route. The, I would say the pivotal moment, the moment that I can look back on and say, this has had the most impact, that took us from just a flailing company, just trying to make an impact, to a viable business that's scalable, is that I joined an organization called Entrepreneur Organization, or EO. And I'm not necessarily promoting them, but when I am promoting is getting around people who have done what you're wanting to do and
Hmm.
learning from them. It was incredible. I received a business mentor through there. There were workshops where literally lessons where it just taught you the basics of business, how to read a P&L sheet, a balance sheet, right? Like what KPIs are,
Yeah.
just all these, just how to employ people, just how to work on strategy and working on your business instead of in your business, why to create systems. Like none of that. I think innately, like my nature is to be efficient, right? But to create a duplicatable system with efficiency, I didn't know. Doing the best I could with my limited knowledge and just learning
Hmm.
like piece by piece. But that really helped give me a foundation to build the business on and things to work on to make it a healthy business. And some people get that just from going to business school, but
No, 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 Meredith, I think that God made me a business owner or as a business major just so I could testify that it didn't help me be a small business owner. It really didn't. I think that if the network was great, I certainly got a lot of soft skills from going to business undergrad and whatnot, but it's definitely, I just meet a good amount of people that say, I want to start a small business, but maybe I'm not ever going to be able to because I didn't go to school for that. And I would say, don't worry, brother or sister, you are good. Save the money. It's not going to really help you with that. It'll help you get a corporate job, but not a small business job. So these more specific, like EO, like you said, entrepreneur organization,
correct.
groups. There's so many different groups, masterminds. I mean, that's even how you and I met. We're part of a Christian like business leaders mastermind with Jordan Rayner, for the purpose of like learning how to redeem our time and become like really, really effective in things. But there's groups centralized around all different levels of business, focuses of business, and you could get a mentor that could help you through these things. I don't want to keep on talking because you are the expert here, but if it's helpful at all, just to share some numbers, I went from being uh, bumping along at like 40K a year to this is maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I finally reached out to another career coach. And what stopped me was I was worried that they were going to think I was trying to copy them or steal their business. But I reached out to a really, really kind person that was in a different niche. Just like with your handbags, you did find a niche. They like, how would you describe it? That your bags have like a point of view, which I really, really like. They're upcycled, like designer bags, right?
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. So we do upcycle designer, which basically means that we purchase authentic vintage designer bags like Louis Vuitton and Gucci, and then deconstruct those and then use that material on our bags. So it's paired with brand new leathers and everything, but yeah, using upcycled
That's
material.
Well, people should check it out via the link below, BoudinDesigns.com. But Beaudin, sorry. I keep on thinking Boudin sausage. I'm so sorry. Louisiana, the
You're too close to
Louisiana in me is
Louisiana.
struggling. But just to close out my story, after I finally reached out to somebody who was so generous to mentor me. Within one conversation, it was like a good hour, but he pointed out all these simple switches I could make just that I didn't think of at all, and I was just struggling. And the very next year my revenue was 120. Like that, he 3x'd my business out of the kindness of his heart. I should give him a shout out. Gaurav Villani of Career Sprout. He is my career coach bestie. Love him. God bless his business. So, anyway, yeah, so I am not surprised at all that it was an inflection point for you as well. Um, as for, is it okay if I ask you a few more advice pieces for people who are looking to start a freedom business, especially within the product realm, aside from maybe getting mentorship or seeking out one of these groups right away? Is there other things that they could do to be efficient and get sales and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. The one area that I would change and I would do different is, and I alluded to it before, is having a business where if you're wanting to help women out of trafficking and specifically by employing them, then what I have observed, and this is just my current opinion at this moment, is that a very good transferable skill that they can do and do well is really working in fulfillment.
Mm,
Right. So, if I were to start all over again, I'm not saying someone should open a fulfillment business just for that, but we have to realize like these, to have a trauma informed workspace, right? Or a healing centered workspace, sometimes people call it, is really important. And you could even reach out to the Freedom Business Alliance, FBA is really great. They have a lot of information on this. We're a member there, and they have like training, and you can connect with other freedom businesses as well. But I would say that from being in this space, it's completely different than just starting a business. Initially, I had grandiose ideas of 100% of my staff are going to be beneficial employees, right, in some way, which does not work at all. On average, about 25 to 30% of Freedom Businesses staff is like a beneficial employee that has been rescued. And the reason is like they're still walking in so much healing and dealing with so much trauma that in the beginning, especially, there's only a certain amount of production that they can do or focusing, right? So to balance out, if you really want to build a viable business, balance that out by hiring people just for their skill and to help you. So I would say build a really strong, healthy business and then give yourself margin to hire these women. And again, like I'm always thinking like right now, like, okay, a fulfillment center, like what would that look like? But these are, like hands-on tasks I feel like they could do. And structure, definitely structure, and creating systems that are simple. And not to say like they're brilliant, but think about when we're really stressed or emotional,
mm,
how our cognitive ability declines drastically, right? Like, so we just have to keep that in mind that they're still coming out of that. And then like, there's a gal that's been with me 8 years now, and she's completely on the other side of it, right? And she's a great employee, but it didn't start out that way. So it doesn't mean that they don't become like a top producer eventually, but
mhm.
just knowing on the front end that may not be the case.
How did you deal with the stress of needing, it sounds like, to care for the beneficial employees emotionally while also dealing with the stress of having to run the business? I when I started to hire people, I felt like I needed them to like be an all-star right away. And this business has even, your freedom business has even more barriers to that happening.
Well, initially, I really treated my business like a ministry, which
Mm.
isn't the right thing to do. I
Oh
probably
wow.
should have just like done a nonprofit and received funding for it. So, full disclosure, like there were years I didn't even pay myself.
Yeah.
So that again, like I've done everything probably the way you shouldn't do it, but learned to do it over again. I would say that there has to be a separation of the same person leading the business, like in the CEO role, I would say should not be the same person as someone that's helping to counsel
Mhm.
the girls. And so to have, even to have an outside source, like, gosh, there's so many amazing organizations that want to help these women, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be internally. You don't have to have a counselor on staff internally. Just reach out and network to the local charities and organizations, the anti-trafficking organizations in your area, or even your church, right? Someone who's familiar with helping these girls, who can then come in and help you with the counseling of it.
Wow. Oh, that is okay. I'm so glad you said that because if you had any other answer, I'd be like, "That's I don't understand how that works." Um, but if I'm hearing you right, I'm hearing you say, "I wish I didn't just treat it like a ministry. I should have treated it like a business."
Very much.
Okay, wow. It's giving Mother Teresa when she said, "We should be as organized in peace as we are in war." And it's I think like that in I think we should be organized and excellent in churches, just like we are in business. And similarly, there are elements of needing to be soft-hearted in business, like we are in churches, and have a little trade, but be wise. And I could totally see how treating something that is a business like a ministry, it, that probably ran you ragged with not even having to give up your salary, your ability to have take home pay for a few years. Wow, dang. Okay, so I'm wondering what else do you think the listeners are like on the other side of their headphones and being like, I hope she asked this question. I have no idea like how to make my dreams come true.
Yeah. Okay. In relation to like just starting a business, receiving a call from God, give me some context.
Those two things. Yeah.
Okay. One I would say is just ask God, like flat out ask Him direct questions and
Mm,
expect that He'll answer. I think that He wants to communicate and conversate with us more than people realize, right? And uh, also be open to whatever direction that He gives you. Uh, just like the business, like I treated the business like a ministry. Honestly, like I don't think I was being a good steward of the
mm,
business, and even the resources being people that God was sending me at that time, right? I feel like now when I'm working, which is much more in just like a business owner capacity rather than a traditional like minister, I'm counseling these girls, like it's completely switched. I honestly feel more of God's pleasure in my daily work now than I think I did then. Now, I liked the accolades. I liked feeling more godly by doing those things, right? But that was me. But honestly, like from the Lord, I feel like He is so pleased. And Jesus has so much to say about profit and bringing in a return, right? So I think this is important, not only if you feel like you want to be an entrepreneur and start a business, but also in our job. You mentioned Jordan Rayner, and there is a book, The Sacredness of Secular Work. I cannot recommend that enough. Like, I literally took like 10 years of what the Lord was trying to drill into me through personal Bible study with Him, right? It's like Jordan took it, packed it into a book, and then expounded on it like 10x, right? So I can't
wow.
recommend that book enough. So I would say a combo of realizing that we can glorify God and do ministry in our daily work. And it doesn't have to look like a charity or an organization,
Mhm.
but that also take time, sit with the Lord, ask Him questions, and just listen for his response in the sense of like those thoughts. We give a great example. It's oftentimes just thoughts that come into your head that otherwise would never have been there, right? And, I love to ask for confirmation. And so many times when I feel like the Lord's directing me, it's already confirmation, like with your
Mm,
story, right? Like it already
mhm,
fit within the context of where he was calling you. But I think it's also okay to ask for confirmation
mm.
as well when you're questioning. And he's faithful
Wow.
to answer, expect him to answer.
What variety of confirmation do you tend to style your requests as? Like, for instance, are you like when Britney Spears, everybody thought that well, I think that she is kind of like semi under house arrest. People were like, in your next video, twirl and wear a yellow dress and we'll know that you need help. Is it like that? Where you're like, God, make this somebody come up to me on the street and say, blah, blah, blah.
No, that would be awesome. But I think we have to remember that like God is ultimately the master creator, right? And so creative. So he will confirm in as many different ways as we are unique and with fingerprints. I think that he can confirm literally just from someone else sharing a pamphlet or an email with you, or, hey, I read this book and I thought about you. It can be someone sending you a Bible verse. It can be like listening to a sermon and then all of a sudden it's speaking directly to like what you're dealing with and the question you're asking. Honestly, sometimes it can even be like out in nature and then nature somehow tying in and all of a sudden seeing the answer of how. I remember I was asking the Lord this about something one time, and he highlighted, like, all of a sudden I zoned in and I couldn't take my eyes off of these lilies. And I just was thinking about like how everything was in that bulb, right? And that everything that it needed to be this beautiful flower, everything was already in that bulb. And it was just him confirming in me that he had already given me everything I needed to move forward, right? But to trust that. So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
so many different ways that he can confirm. So, and at least in my experience, it's never just like
Oh,
one
yeah.
way, or I never pin down. I mean, you can try it. He's got
You
it.
could try.
But
Why
he's
not?
also, what I've learned is he's not a vending machine, right? Like you
Mm.
can't put a
Oh,
dollar in and press A5 and get a Snickers, right? Like,
yeah. How does that
but
relate to asking for career direction or wisdom in decisions, or even, many people listening to this podcast are asking God for what their calling is? How does What do they need to know in that context about God is not a vending machine?
yeah, that when just because we take an action, right, doesn't mean that it's going to guarantee an outcome.
Mhm.
Uh, and that can be true on so many levels. One, I think too that what I see a lot in freedom businesses or businesses that exist for social cause is that because our heart seems right to do good and to help others, doesn't negate that we have to have good business practices. I
Mhm.
heard it said once that God is like the plus on business, right? Like it's business plus. So you have to have good business principles, and then he's the plus, right? Like when we do business with him. So God will not just replace really bad business principles.
Mm,
He
wow.
may bail you out periodically with a miracle, but to just be living on miracles all the time is not going to work.
Wow. If it don't make no dollars, it don't make no sense, I guess. Wow. I'm just gonna need to sit on that for a while. I and Hmm. Yeah, I'm wondering like what Bible stories like also confirm that of like well, I'm thinking immediately, thank you Jesus, for Ecclesiastes chapter 11 verses 1 through 6. I have shared this quite a few times on the podcast because I think it's so profound of um people who look up at the skies to predict the best time to plant will never reap a crop. Meanwhile, people who It starts out with, you should invest in 7 ships, no 8, because you don't know which one is going to come to shore. And I don't know about you, but to me, always feel God saying, don't forget logic, don't miss out on like the table stakes or like the basics, don't over spiritualize the basics, just do that. And then for all the like very very nuanced stuff, maybe we could get spiritual about that, but maybe just shoot for the basics and like be logical. I don't know if that's a good summary of what um, you meant in your statement, but what do you think?
Yes, definitely. And I think too, Jesus gave a lot of parables, about the master and giving the different talents, like the 10 and the 5
Mhm.
and the 1, to
Mm.
his servants and going away, right? And so when he entrusts us with something or an idea, right, like our businesses or our careers are ultimately, if we've really given them to the Lord's and they're really his, and yet we don't bring a return on that, well, you know, Jesus has a lot to say about that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Actually, my Instagram post today was about that. So you and I are tracking. um, wow, Meredith, I realized that before we close, I definitely need to ask you about Door of Hope because Beaudin isn't your only business. You started your new nonprofit. So may you share like what was the founding story with that? How did you decide that you need to add more on your plate?
I definitely did not decide I needed to add more on my plate, but yeah, followed the Lord.
The
So
Lord.
the Lord, yes, all his grandiose ideas. So what happened is through my business, it really does start with Beaudin. So Beaudin has opened up so many amazing doors as I've been faithful to stay in it. Like I've been able to serve in Bolivia and work in the brothels there. Like he's opened up so many doors, and one of them was the connection with the Freedom Business Alliance. And the Freedom Business Alliance was having a conference in Thailand. And so I was going out there to attend the conference. And when I was there, initially spent the conference was in Pattaya, which is beach town. So I spent a few days in Bangkok, and was connecting with an organization there. And then I go to Pattaya for the conference itself. And granted, I'd been in the anti-trafficking ministry for 10 plus years at this point. So I think, I'm just going to a beach town. Like I'm looking forward to these beaches. And so I'm leaving Bangkok, have a driver. So like an hour and a half away, get to Pattaya, and even just driving in, I mean, it's beautiful and sunny out, but there was just like a heaviness and a darkness that I was feeling that I was not expecting at all. And literally had the driver drop me off at the front door of the hotel, check in, go to my room, and I call my husband. I'm like, something is wrong. Like, this is just a really dark, I felt dirty, like it was a dirty place, but I had no understanding of why. First night at that conference, and the first speak, they tell us that Pattaya, where we are, is the sex tourism capital of the world. I
The
thought,
world.
oh, now it makes sense. Now, granted, though, I've been working in anti trafficking 10 years and didn't even know this, right? So
Wow.
that alone is a clue that, okay, there's not enough advocacy going around for that place. So great, great conference. The last day, I go out with, there's two main organizations that are working there. So really only two, right?
Wow.
Right. In the sex tourism capital of the world. Like I can name probably 20 quickly off the top of my head in Atlanta alone,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
Yeah. So the lack of just workers and laborers there is very evident. So there's six main red light districts there. And so they have a building in
6.
six.
Oh my
Yes,
lord.
really, as you walk around, it's everywhere. Like yeah, it's just out on the streets.
I
It's
saw a really, really disturbing documentary about this, and just to see the casual visual of how many men who are walking around solo, sipping their coffee before you know what they're about to do in 20 minutes. It's it makes me want to throw up just talking about it. It's so, so, so dark. So I can only imagine what it was like to actually like be in the air and to feel that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really intense. And yeah, so as we go out in this red light district on the last day, he took the director of the local organization called Tamar Center. They're amazing. If anyone wants to support them, um, we I just asked him, I was like, I know you already did the walks, but I'd like to just go walk. And I really felt strong that I just wanted to go and pray. And as we're doing that, there's three levels of the building. And as we get to the top level, he's sharing about how that the girls before COVID knew to come to them for help. But since then, that the bar owners, who are essentially the pimps disguised as bar owners, right, move the girls around in these six red light districts so much that they don't know to come to them. So it's like the business side of my brain. Oh, well, you just need more locations. And I'm going to intercede for that, right? Like, just so in the moment, like, oh, well, this is very obvious. This is the solution. And, I'm going to intercede. And my heart really was broken, like, for that area and that place. I just felt like the Lord really laid the burden of those people. Like, I woke up one morning literally just crying because like my heart was broken for what I was
Mm.
seeing. So came back home and was like, okay, I'm going to intercede that they'll expand and get the people they need. And then one morning in my quiet time, it was so clear to me that the Lord put in my spirit, he says, build me a house in Pattaya. And I knew that I was the one that needed to take action to help expand his presence there in Pattaya, Thailand. And then talk about confirmation. Like, he had already been talking to me since January that year. Literally, it lined up like out of the book of Ezra. I'd been studying in the book of Ezra. And so I had my own, like, Ezra on the first day of the first month left Babylon. And I had a sabbatical on the first day of the first month where it was like the Lord released me from what felt like a Babylon to me. Then on the first day of the fifth month, Ezra entered into Jerusalem. Well, it was the first day of the fifth month that I arrived in Thailand,
Oh
right?
my gosh, get out.
Like, you
Things like
can't
this
make this
always
up.
like freak me out so much with like when we get a taste of the power and might and presence of the Lord. It's sometimes it's too much for me sometimes. Wow, Meredith, Jesus, wow.
Yeah, and I'm giving you like high level details. Like when somebody I've never seen, the Lord's never given me a neon sign, but trust me, for this one, I didn't need it.
Wow.
It was just like confirmation after confirmation. Even the people that I sat next to while I was at the conference were literally the people that I needed to connect with to even go back to Thailand and to make this happen. Right. So I ended up back in October with those through those connections and everything. And yeah, just walking it out. Like, we're still building it, still getting the framework, but it's amazing. Like, we have the local ministry, who's going to staff it and run it there, building out what's going to be happening there, figuring out we already have the location. Like, God gave me the location of the next red light district. And then also this leader who's going to be the executive director there also had the same location in mind, like, of where to go. Like, it's just no doubt that, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Meredith, I think when you get to heaven, I feel like all the angels are gonna freak out and be like, our best girl is finally here. You are such a powerful woman of God. How can we support Door of Hope?
Yes, you can right now. We're still like building out the official website, but we do have information about it on Beaudin's website. So beaudindesigns.com. If you go there and then search Door of Hope, then it'll pull up a page where it'll tell you all about it. And if you feel led to donate, Also, if you just want to be like on the prayer list, reach out and just let us know through like a message that we can add you to the prayer list and give you updates as we continue to grow and expand.
Pick me. Put me on that list. Oh my gosh. Wow. Um, in closing, would you pray for us and the listeners that have, I assume, would really be inspired to live out a story similar to yours?
Yes, I would love to. Well, Papa Yahweh, we just are in awe of who you are and that you call us child, whether that be son or daughter. And I thank you that every detail of our life matters to you. And yet, ultimately, it's about our heart posture and our motive behind what we're doing. May we not get too caught up in the details and just worried that what we're doing is bringing glory, but rather we do it just to feel your pleasure and for your glory. Lord, I pray for everyone that is listening that you would give them a greater clarity on what you've called them to do in this next season or the season they're in. And also, Lord, I pray now and I use my faith to ask for a confirmation of what that is as well. I thank you, God, that you have all of the resources that we need to do whatever it is that you called us to do, and pray that our faith would rise and that we would be bold in taking action in the steps, trusting that you will bring the resources needed. So I bless all that are listening in the mighty name of Jesus.
Amen. Wow. Meredith, I just want to say it's a real gift to be in your presence because of how I'm not trying to be cheesy, but honestly, you steward the Holy Spirit in such a way that it makes me fall more in love with God and ask myself, what am I doing over here? I gotta go fall at His feet. Um, yeah, wow. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and the advice that I know I think plenty of people will cling on to. I already look forward to sending this to a few people I think it would impact. And yeah, I pray that God blesses your business and all the people that are blessed by it, which is a lot at this point. So, everybody go check out beaudindesigns.com. And that way, like you said, you could also find Door of Hope. Is there any other place that we should follow along in addition to reaching out if we want to be on the prayer list for Door of Hope?
Yeah, that's it for now. We're actually in the process. The website is being built as we speak. So, pretty soon there will be another way. But if you'll just reach out through beaudindesigns.com, let us know that you're interested in following around Door of Hope, then we'll get you plugged in.
And okay, gotta give a specific shout out. I love your Apple Watch bands. I love your little clutches. I love the purses. So this is not only gift to yourself, City. If you need a gift for a lady in your life, Beaudin Designs is your place. There's a reason it's been a success. Yeah, so shout out to that and to you. Thanks for everything today.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. To get an even more meaningful head start into your calling, head to thecalledcareer.com, where my fellow career coach Audrey and I have created a whole suite of free resources and tools to help you get clear and get a job today. For those who are definitely ready to land a job or start a business in the next 6 to 12 months, we're here to help you biblically and practically discern your calling through coaching, reflection, and deep market research. Identify the job that's aligned with it, even if you currently have no idea what you want. Rebrand your resume and LinkedIn to translate your background to appeal to your future boss. P.S. We take this off your plate and do this for you. Also, we'll teach you how to land referrals and get attention from leadership through networking. Again, if that makes you nervous, we have these emails and LinkedIn messages literally written for you so you don't have to sweat. We're also here to give you unlimited interview practice so you're prepared to address every elephant in the room and knock selling yourself out of the park. Then we'll round out with helping you negotiate your salary so you land thousands more. Just so you know, Recent clients have gotten $8,000 to $50,000 salary increases, even though they were totally non-traditional candidates. That's because we specialize in helping non-traditional career pivoters land jobs they're ecstatic to serve in. It takes work, but we're here to see you through until the end, when we're celebrating that day that you send me an email in all caps and you say, Kelsey, I got the job. Then you could be on the podcast. But I'll be here until then, keeping you accountable and encouraged by meeting with you literally until you land the job you want, even if that's up to 6 months from now within our program. Apply to join at thecalledcareer.com, and I'll see you next week here at Answer the Call. Bye for now.